Hello and welcome to another video with me, Teacher Beefy. Today we're going to be talking about how to write a book review. The same sort of format of book review I'm going to give you today can also be used to write a review for a movie with a few changes, but that's maybe for another video. So why would you write a book review in the first place? Well, you may find yourself writing a commercial book review that will appear in a newspaper or a magazine. As a student, you may find yourself writing a book review as part of your coursework that will be set by your teacher. But before you write any review or any writing at all, you should make some notes. So I'm going to give you a list of sections or headings that you should make notes on. Okay, so here we go. The first part is obviously you should list the title of the book and the name of the author. Here you should make some notes about the author themselves, so some details. These you will find probably inside the front cover or on the back of the book. If it's a famous author, you maybe don't need to go into too much detail here. Maybe you could just list a couple of their more famous titles, some of their previous work. If it's a new author or somebody that people won't know, you may feel inclined to write a few more details about them. And again, you will find these details inside the front or back cover of the book. You should list the publisher and the year when the book was first published. It will also have what we call an ISBN number, and all this information again can be found just inside the front cover of the book itself. Okay, one thing you should list here, particularly if it's a commercial review, you should list the price of the book. Okay, books come in hardback or paperback. The hardback version is usually the one that comes out first. Hardback versions of books can be quite expensive. Now bear in mind that the whole idea of writing a review is so that people can make up their minds whether they want to go out and read this book. So if they have to go out and buy it, the price can be important. So you should list the price for the hardback and the paperback. Okay. In this part, you should also make a note of the genre of the book. Genre, maybe that's a new word for you. G-E-N-R-E, genre, simply means the type of book, whether it be romance, horror, thriller, action, science fiction. Okay, so you should list which category the book falls into. And here you should also list the location or locations where the book is set. It may be one or two locations which you can mention. If it's lots of locations, you could simply list that it's multiple locations. Okay. So the next part, you should move on to the protagonists. Now there's a long word, protagonists. The protagonists are simply the main characters in the book. Okay. Most books, not all, but most books have a hero and a villain. Obviously they represent good and bad, good and evil. Okay, just make a list of who they are and possibly how they are related to each other, but be brief, be very brief. Okay, a lot of stories will have multiple characters, and you really want to just stick to the protagonists. Okay. Now we move on to the plot or the story. First of all, I have to say that when you write about the plot, your narrative should be in the present tense. Okay, a lot of people make the mistake of chopping and changing tenses, and particularly relying on the past tense. Okay, this is understandable because you're writing about a story that's already taken place. It's already happened. So the temptation is to write about it in the past. But no, please keep your narrative about the plot in the present tense. Okay, and don't write too much. Okay, the temptation is to retell the story, which you don't want to do. Okay, because you haven't got the space, particularly if it's a commercial book review. You won't have the space in the newspaper or the magazine to write an endless story. Okay, so most stories follow a certain format. A format is simply the way things are laid out. So I'm going to tell you the usual format for a story, and you have to try and identify where the story falls into these parts. Okay, so most stories at first, everything's fine, everything's good, everyone's just going about their business, and this is where we're introduced usually to the main characters in the story. Then something goes wrong, and it usually goes wrong because the villain has stepped in and tried to take over the world, or do the bad things that villains do. Then we get to the part in the story where the hero steps in and he puts things right. This is what we call the turning point. The turning point in the story. So the hero steps in and he saves the world. He wins the day, and that's the turning point. And then we get to probably the most important part of the story, which is the happy ending. Okay, why do we need a happy ending? Well, good must triumph over evil. Okay, it's what we all want to see. It's what we all want to read about. Okay, nobody likes an unhappy ending. Okay, so the hero, he gets the girl, he finds the treasure, everyone lives happily ever after. And if you don't have a happy ending, if people don't like the ending, they very often convince themselves that they haven't enjoyed the book. It may have been a fantastic book all the way through, but if you don't have a happy ending, then people will convince themselves that they haven't enjoyed the book. So without a happy ending, the book falls short of expectations. So the last part should be where you state whether you enjoyed the book, and you can say why you enjoyed it or why you didn't enjoy it. It's okay to say that you didn't enjoy a book. And if you find yourself writing a commercial book review, you will be given the task to write about books that normally you wouldn't choose to read. Okay, this is where we come back to the genre. Remember, we said that the genre is the type of book. Okay, for me personally, let's take science fiction as a genre. If I was given a book about science fiction through choice, I probably wouldn't read it. It's not a genre that I enjoy reading about. But if you work for a newspaper or magazine, you will be given books to read and review that normally you wouldn't have picked up and read. Okay, so you still have to be objective with your review. And if you didn't enjoy it, you can say that you didn't enjoy it. If you wouldn't recommend it, you can say that you wouldn't recommend it. Please do not say that the book was absolute rubbish, because it probably wasn't rubbish. It was just a book that you personally didn't enjoy reading. It doesn't mean it's rubbish. Okay, a review is so that people can make up their own minds whether they want to go out and read this book. Okay, just because you thought it wasn't very good doesn't mean everyone else will think the same. So try to remain objective with your review. It's okay to give a book a bad review and say that you didn't enjoy it, and that gives people the chance to make their own minds up. So it doesn't always have to be a favourable review. Okay, so now that you've made your notes, you should organise your notes into paragraphs, set them out, and remember, you really don't have a lot of words to play with. Okay, you should keep your review short, maybe 200, 250 words at the most. And this is very important if you're writing commercially, because you just won't have the space in the newspaper or the magazine. So keep everything brief, and just make sure you raise the main points with everything. Okay, I'm going to give you a list of useful phrases that maybe you can try and work in to your review and make it sound a little bit more professional. Okay, so number one, there's a twist at the end. There's a twist at the end. Very often a story will be going along in a certain direction, and it turns out not the way that everyone expected. Something comes up that we really didn't see coming, and that's a twist. And the twist is usually at the end. Okay, so if you can spot a twist in the plot or the story, then you can bring it to people's attention by saying that there is a twist at the end. So number two, the plot develops slowly until. Okay, a lot of stories, a lot of plots, they do start very, very slowly. Okay, and this is a shame, because you really want your reader to be hooked by the story early on. For me personally, if a book hasn't grabbed my interest even within the first few pages, I might put it down and not continue reading it. So it's important that the plot is what we call fast paced. Okay, the story must move along quickly, but some stories do start slowly, and if they do, then you can say the plot develops slowly until, obviously then something happens to speed things up. Number three, this is where you can say the pace of the story quickens. Okay, the pace of the story quickens. So if you can identify a point in the story where things become a bit more exciting, where we're given a little bit more information, then you can say that the pace of the story quickens. If it's a book that you really, really enjoyed, you could say something like, I couldn't put it down. Okay, so that's number four. I couldn't put it down. Very often, if you find a book that you really enjoy reading, you think, oh, I'll just read to the end of this chapter. But then something happens and you think, oh, I need to know more. I'll read the next chapter. And it ends up that you can't actually put the book down. You carry on reading and reading. So I couldn't put the book down. Number 5, the story takes place in. This is where you can list the location where all the action takes place. So that's number 5. Number 6, it was first published in. Then you would list the information that you find in the beginning of the book. Okay, and number 7, the novel is set in. It may be set in a different time. It may be set in a long time in the past. It may be a story that's set in the future. So the novel is set in is a phrase that you can use to tell the readers what the setting is. Okay. So when you have completed your notes, you should organize them into maybe 4 paragraphs, okay, or four sections. So to recap, paragraph 1 should provide the important facts and details about the book. Paragraph 2 should describe the main characters, the protagonists, and their relationship with each other. Paragraph 3, you should mention about the plot. And again, I can't stress enough, be brief. Be brief with the plot. Okay, if you can identify a turning point, that would be great. And you should list the other important events. Try and avoid what we call the subplots. A subplot is a story that runs along within a story, and subplots, and there may be several. The subplots are not important as regards the review of the overall book, so avoid the subplots, stick to the main details. And lastly, your recommendation. Did you enjoy it? Would you recommend other people to read this book? Okay, so let's move on to a couple of activities that you guys can do. First of all, find reviews, book reviews in newspapers and magazines. Have a look at them, read them, see if they compare with the format or the layout that I've spoke about today. They won't always, but very often they will. So have a look at reviews in newspapers and magazines, and online as well. Lots of reviews are online these days. You will notice that if you find reviews in newspapers and magazines, you will notice that they're short, they're brief. There's not a lot of rambling detail in these reviews, because they simply don't have the room. Okay, so once you've read through some of these reviews, I would like you to write your own book review. Okay, this can be one of your favorite books. It can be any book really, and as I said, you don't have to give it a favorable review. You may have been given a book to read by one of your teachers that you didn't enjoy. Well, here's your chance to say why you didn't enjoy it. Now, the interesting thing about giving a book an unfavorable review, you also get the chance to say obviously why you didn't enjoy it, but you get a chance to make a recommendation. You can say things like it would have been better if something else had happened, particularly the ending. If you didn't enjoy the ending, you can say that you didn't enjoy the ending and it would have been a more favorable ending if something else would have happened. Okay, so as I keep saying, keep things brief. Now your book review that you're going to write shouldn't be any more than 250 words long. Okay, 200 would be much better. But if you have to spill over, 250 words is really the most you should be doing. Okay, so have fun with your book review, and thanks once again for watching. Thanks once again for listening, and I hope everyone has a nice day. Thank you. Bye bye.